here doing this? I guess, what's sort of grown over the course of, I guess, how have you kind of grown as a fundraiser, and just kind of how's this event kind of grown over the years?
Yeah, I think it's ironic that when this idea started, 8 years ago, we thought it would just be some small party in our backyard. We'd just pitch a tent and throw a few tables out and go from there. But obviously this has grown immensely, where we're sold out again this year. I think it's a great tribute to the people behind it and the people of the state that have really jumped in and supported it financially. And it's obviously, this is the marquee event of the year, but we have other smaller grassroots initiative events that go on throughout the year. But with how the themes have changed, I let the creative team come up with a theme and keep moving forward. But I just think how, as awesome as we're hoping to go over $10 million tonight, raised in less than 9 years. But I think more impactful than that, and more what has really hit us, Michelle and I, is just the relationships that we've built with people across the state that have gone through or are going through some type of cancer journey, whether it's a celebration of a success and a defeat of cancer, or visiting somebody in hospice. I think just that ability to connect and talk with people, and obviously share our experiences with the disease, but also try to help them, even if it's a little bit about Wisconsin basketball, try to brighten their day for a couple hours compared to what they have to go through the other hours of the day. So I think the relationships and the connectivity around it, and how the state has really jumped behind it from all corners of the state. Well, people from everywhere here tonight, and so it's just been very humbling and kind of an honor, really, to be able to do this for the state.
I was going to say, you've been doing this for a while. How often do you hear kind of, positive words about, the impact that, this program is having?
Yeah, all the time. We hear, more and more success stories of patients. We have a lot of survivors and thrivers, as they're called, back here tonight that were, our special guest years ago, and they're doing well, and they've beaten the disease. So they're going to join us tonight. We're going to honor them as well. But yeah, you hear more and more success stories every year, and hopefully we got to keep trending that way. We've done a really good job, but we got a long ways to go. We try to get to a point where we can put this disease in the rearview mirror of society. But the impact, so there's still people that succumb to this disease, and we all have those stories and understand that's part of life. But I think we're doing a lot of good things, but there's a lot more we can do.
What does it kind of mean to you when you see all the people that show up here, whether it be Coach Izzo or just everybody that comes to support, and the ability to kind of be maybe the pushing force behind creating so much support for something that is such a big issue?
Yeah, I think it's, again, I go back to the people that have jumped behind it, and we've had a group of very generous donors from day one that jumped in and really took it seriously and really wanted to help and knew that we can make a difference. And I think the ability to keep the money right here in Wisconsin and put 90+% of it right to work with research down the road at Carbone, and then also with the patient care initiatives and grassroots things we can do around the state, and people feel the impact. There's a tangible impact being felt across the state. And we had a group of top sponsors at our house last night, and just hearing their stories. One that his father has the same brain cancer that my dad passed away from, but because of the research and the advances that have been made in the last 9 years right here in Madison, he's still with us today, and they've been able to get his brain cancer under control. And obviously the advances that have happened in treatment and in care and technology that weren't available here 9 years ago when my dad was going through it. So those are the stories that people really appreciate what this event has done, because it generates so much money, which helps the Carbone Center with going after federal grants and bigger research dollars. There's a prime example of how one individual has had his life extended due to what the Carbone Center has been able to do for people.
Greg, I know that you and Coach Izzo really shared a lot of your respects, publicly with each other.
Sure.
Just how did this come about, and what does it mean for him to kind of be here tonight and obviously speaking with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, he actually flew in yesterday, and he was at our house last night for that, like I said, the top donor event. And when I called him, a couple months ago, we were still in season, and he said, "Hey, if the date works, I'm there. I'll do anything for you." So, it worked. Obviously, we played each other then in the Big Ten tournament. We both went our ways in the NCAA tournament. But he's been phenomenal. I mean, he's a salt of the earth guy. I mean, just he was awesome last night speaking to our group at our house, and he's been terrific in the time he's been here. There's a lot of people in this profession that you have relationships with, but there's a hand selected, very, very few that you really look to as a mentor and as a really good friend, as a peer in this profession. And like I said, he's a phenomenal basketball coach, the best the Big Ten has ever seen. So he broke that record this year, but he's an even better person, and I think it speaks volumes for him to spend the better part of 2 days, and he's got to fly back tonight because he has graduation tomorrow at Michigan State. So I can't thank him enough. I owe him one big time. He's doing this out of the kindness of his heart. Just that's the type of person he is.
It's not always a college basketball coach that's the special guest at this type of event. Can you guys, I guess, share stories about how difficult it is to kind of pull aside and do an event like this at this time of year in this current climate?
Yeah, I mean, we're all busy, and he does a great job with a lot of philanthropic things in Michigan, and along with his wife Loopy. And we always joke that we talk a lot during the season and in the off season when we see each other, and our kind of running joke is we'll hate each other for 40 minutes while we're playing, and then we'll go back to being good friends. So like I said, the fact that I know how my schedule looks, and his is probably much more compact than mine is. For him to be able to do this and come over here, like I said, it's been the better part of 2 days, is again just a huge credit to him. And I think just the commitment I've said many times, I think I've said at the press conference with you, Mike, last year, that the day he retires from college basketball, I hope it's not for a long time. It won't be the same without him, and it'll be a sad day for college basketball. Hopefully he's got a lot left in him. I think he does. He's still one heck of a coach and has great teams year after year after year. And he's been able to adjust, and adapt and evolve as this landscape has changed. And think about him and what he's seen over the course of his career, from the early 90s when he took over for Coach Heathcote to how it's evolved now. So, like I said, I just can't thank him enough for him spending this time with us here.
What do you value the most of the friendship, mentorship, that relationship that you guys have? What do you value the most?
The honest, cold, hard truth with each other. I'm able to, if we're struggling a little bit, I'm able to call him, or actually he calls me just to check, make sure I'm okay. I haven't had to call him too much because he doesn't struggle very much. He's been like I said, he's been a great mentor. Even before I became the head coach, he was one head coach that I would see that's a competitor or a rival that would always grab me on the road and check in on just my career advancement and how things were going. And like I said, he has a very personal touch to him. And like I said, I think there's some similarities with how we both have come through the profession. He spent all his career, for the most part, other than he said 6 months in Tulsa. Everything else has been at Michigan State and in the state of Michigan, and I think there's some parallels there with how my career's unfolded. And I think there's a lot of commonalities that we share and things that we believe in. Like I said, just the brutal, cold honesty that he sees, the lens he sees that through is refreshing.
You got time for a next question?
Sure.
The whole idea of roster limits and all that stuff, that's going to be finalized within the next couple of weeks or so. I guess, like, where are you guys at with building the roster with that all kind of in flux, I guess?
We'll see where that all lands here. If it is depending on what the judge what she approves, and if it does stay at 15 or if there's a grandfathering period in, and we're planning at 15, and if we can go beyond that, we will. That'll get that answer obviously handed to us from the ruling. But we're at 14 right now. We're still actively recruiting another spot, so we'll add one more here. I don't know when, but we're in that process of continuing to add as we go forward.
Is that going to be a walk-on?
Don't know yet. And likely scholarship is what we're looking. We're in conversations with quite a few people, but we're just making sure it's fit, and a lot of things that are in play with all that.
If you had to sum up, with the 4 portal guys that you've announced, kind of what you've added, how would you sum it up?
Yeah, I think we've added, with Carrington, with Boyd, and Rhodey, we added a lot of experience. I think that was important to be able to bring guys that have had experience, because we lose a lot of experience. And then with the others, just continuing to grow and get better. Rapp is, I think, it was West Coast Conference Player of the Year, or Freshman of the Year there, and he fits with who we are. And I can't talk. And not every dot has been, or I has been dotted and T has been signed with gentleman from Lithuania, but we're at the finish line of that, and then we'll have more to say on him. But and then, like I said, we have the 3 freshmen coming in to sign in the fall, and then we're planning to add at least one more.
Given that the portal process is kind of like a speed dating, you don't get a lot of time to meet a guy. Like how do you make sure that the player you're getting is the right guy rather than just the right player?
A lot of research, a lot of phone calls, a lot of depending on, you're trying to rely on relationships. Obviously with Rhodey, being from the state, we recruited him, watched him in high school, recruited him when he transferred from St. Thomas to Virginia. Obviously stayed in touch with the people around him, and he decides to make a move. Carrington, we saw play at Minnesota, watched him growing up, playing there in his high school days, and then obviously the 2 years at Minnesota, and then was with good friends of ours, Eric Conkle and Duffy Conroy at Tulsa. So there was a familiarity there with him, and Rapp really was. There was a lot of connections. His dad had coached in Division III. There was he knew about Coach Ryan, and that relationship there. There was a connection through Randy Bennett at St. Mary's, really helped us in terms of when they had asked just for some advice, and Coach Bennett Randy Bennett really helped us in that regard and vouching. And there was some connection through Greg Popovich with the Spurs too. The dad has a good relationship with him, and between the Division III background of myself and our history, and then obviously the relationship with Greg Steemsma, a lot of things came together to make that happen.
Everybody good? Can we get coaches over here?
All right.
Thanks, Greg.